Good evening, all my exotic plant leaves. I'm happy that you've rejoined me for the next part of The Last Maron, the sci-fi story connected to where Voyager2 is in not quite 150 million years' time after humanity is extinct. Now, if you've listened to the first part of the story, you'll know that the Blue Sea, where the male Maron are preparing, but are snookered because their caldera, their mountain they have to climb, has raised 10 times through to tectonic activity. The females, they know this is the night, their closest proximity to the star, and they're becoming a bit frantic because they know this is the night. So we'll just take it for there, where we're now into the Red Sea. We know that in the Blue Sea, the males are preparing to climb in the Red Sea. This is where we start off. It is Viola, the Red Sea, 142.6 million years AD, by Earth reckoning. Anyway, excuse me. Sorry. Fucking things hurt my nose. What can you do, man? That wee thing. Anyway, the females, you excuse me for if I did that. The females were becoming frantic. They instinctively know that this is the night of the tidal surge and the males would be arriving before the morrow. The nagging and primal anxiety had indeed already manifested itself, causing approximately 20% of the females to produce immature or invalid embryos, afflicting the affected Maron with sadness unparalleled. The females were evolved higher than the males and subsequently far more attuned to the planet's environment. Perhaps they'd rather have been less aware, as perception of their own threatened existence actually physically hurt them. Tragically, the whole species was about to experience hurt which was not understood, a mass mental mutilation event of sorts. They would carry this feeling for the rest of their lives, tortured, suffering, empty. For them to understand would be akin to a human parent trying to explain Einstein's E equals mc squared equation to a newborn infant. Blue Sea. The surges had become stronger. The entire ocean seemed alive, excited, enraptured as if dancing to the star's proximity. Its closeness to the sea was almost like a long-absent mother returning and bringing warmth and joy. The male Maron were ready, in regimental rows by now, waiting for the highest possible surge. Up the sea rose. A mighty ocean was an incidental next to such massive body as its star, and indeed the water did do a dance to its master's tune. Up the tides lifted, breaking high in the inner caldera wall. Each surge deposited thousands of Maron on the rock face, whom instantly started scrambling upwards, seeking a safe crevice or such to allow it to see the best route to begin with. They could see no further than 10 metres or so. The rest was down to luck, with only around 1 in 1,000 having all the luck required to survive the climb. The 1,000 or so males that succeeded from the roughly million that tried, a very stable number for millennia, enjoy high reward, fertilizing thousands of embryos and also protecting the dozen male embryos safely attached to their inner sac that the adult males possess. It had been this way for time beyond count, until now. Until now. Now everything had changed. Instead of an immensely arduous climb up 100 metres or so of bare rock, the males now faced an ascent of almost 10 times that distance. And they are not capable of it. Red Sea. She remembers the last mating event. However, it's a distant and vague memory. She remembers a star filling the sky, huge, beautiful. Most of all, she remembers a magnificent feeling of fulfillment, of contentment, and the many children she raised. She hopes that her one and every offspring made it to adulthood and will experience emotional joy she herself had. She was beyond mating age now, but clearly felt the anticipation of the younger females and revelled in their happy anticipation of arriving males. She was also feeling the negative, the same dismay within all of the females, and being so elderly, she possibly intuitively understood it heralded significant changes to their existence. She could not have absorbed exactly how significant those changes would be. Meanwhile, she continues with her contribution to the sorrowing and melancholic songs born on the far side of the planet and circling around the entire globe, many times or few. Now, sadly, it didn't matter. Cosmic chance had conspired to condemn the Maron. Blue Sea. He was gripping extremely solidly onto the rock. He was well sheltered and on a reasonably level shelf outcrop. He was well above any of the thousands of other Maron and had been climbing for a long time. He was not even halfway to the summit and he was exhausted, worn out, almost dead. He was overwhelmed by the feelings of disorientation brought about the conclusion he had somehow failed. Otherwise, surely by now he would have reached the summit. He was actually the strongest Maron anywhere in the Blue Sea and had somehow managed to clamber up more than 600 metres, a monumental achievement worthy of mention. His powerful grip suddenly tightened as a mortal spasm signalled the end of his life, there and then, and he was literally immobilised, his body in place like a monument to his accomplishment, or a sentinel over a vibrant body of water which had now been sentenced to death. The male Maron, who were unsuccessful in even gaining a foothold on the rocks, now swam around aimlessly. They had become stronger for the attempt, but clearly not strong, or perhaps lucky, enough. Their bodies were full of an hormone similar to testosterone and adrenaline mixed together, leaving them angry, utterly empty and very, very aggressive. The brutality, the savageness, and the sheer pointlessness of what happens next is always over before successfully mated males return to begin the long imprinted preparations for their own parenthood. However, without any obvious or distinctive reason or starting point, the unsuccessful males now faced off against one another, all aware a fight to the death was imminent. Frenzied and bloody combative horror churned the Blue Sea into a blood-red, boiling like cauldron of death. The Maron used teeth and claw like knife and sword, and grievous were the wounds inflicted. All was mortal, with only the fittest and always the youngest Maron prevailing. When the senior males return with the precious next generation, the sea is always calm with the slaughter over. The males who had survived would assist and attend pregnant males, helping with the young too, subconsciously learning how to do it themselves in turn. This time, the water level meant that only 5% of males actually made it onto the rock itself, when it normally would be around half. None return. The unusually high numbers left this time resulted in terrible losses, with more than 70% killed, another 25% wounded so badly they quickly died of starvation, assisted greatly by a parasitic horde of worms that survive exclusively on elderly or injured Maron. It was like a gala event for the parasites, but they are part of the Maron's food chain ecosystem, and their existence is endangered too, by extension. Perhaps they can adapt and overcome, slotting perfectly into another evolutionary radiated niche, easier for a worm-like parasite than for a higher plane animal like a Maron. That's a speculative bubble, however, as by the time required for this change to happen, the old star would be spent, destroying everything in its own solar system, and then restarting the whole process over again, the birth of a new star, eventually, hopefully, returning light and possibly life to the tiny piece of space it will inhabit. Viola, 142.6 million years AD plus 50 years. By Earth reckoning. The Voyager craft hurtled through space, almost at the stage of leaving Viola's system. The sphere of influence from Viola's supermassive star, combined with the angle and area Voyager entered into the system, meant the craft with the golden embryo spent precisely 50 to 52 years traversing the system, most of them reasonably close to Viola, as their orbits described similar directional paths in what was a marvellous piece of luck. A 1/4% deviation from its path would have seen it pulled, cold and unemotional, towards the enormous star before being destroyed, melted but still unemotional. Blue sea. There were no male Maron in the salty ocean. The victors of the previous cycle's feral and ferocious killing frenzy soon perished from infection, and most from parasitic invasion, where the unlucky Maron were literally eaten from the inside out, but in a way long ago learned by the hordes of parasites that left the afflicted Maron alive for the longest possible time. It was an altogether hideous way to die, with appalling pain and suffering a constant companion until death had mercy on the animal. There were many pieces of bone and claw around the base of the inner caldera. Some parts of the carcasses were just about recognisable as Maron remains. There was a feeling of decay in and around the blue sea, which indeed had been rotting under the surface for many years. The entire ocean's ecosystem had collapsed not too long after the Maron slaughter, and there was now only the flimsiest of food chains, all of which were on the verge of complete collapse. Cannibalism and scavenging were becoming commonplace. The stillness of the water suggested peace and calmness of existence. The stench emanating from the same water confirmed it would be stagnant and toxic, a place devoid of meaningful life. Just around half a mile above this terminally ill water, like an artist had sculpted a reminder of an era which itself had joined the long list of things lost to extinction, still stood the Maron that had displayed such admirable tenacity. He was partly sheltered and way too far away to be seen, if there had been anything left to see him, by a fluke of geological sculpting. He suffered his death spasm at an area that not only allowed his marvellously sharp and long claws to tightly grip onto the bare rock, but also gave the impression that the Maron had been mounted with careful deliberation. This gave the Maron credit at least for a feat worthy of mention. The dryness around the highest points of the inner caldera slows deterioration of the animal considerably, allowing him to remain proud, like a guardian of much importance, watching over his kingdom. Unfortunately, his kingdom was as active as he. Red Sea. There were very, very few female Maron left, and the imposing sight produced by the close proximity of the huge star again causes confusion and opposing emotional signals and instincts within each one. Their disorientation is so total that the remaining few thousand or so simply cease to function naturally, not eating, not singing their heart-breaking songs, not gathering together. They merely continue to swim, never stopping, except when death's embrace released them. In consideration, that end is perhaps preferable to endless and pointless searching for something that no longer exists, while the feelings of loneliness are constant companions for 50 or 60 long years. Interstellar space, 142.6 million AD plus 100 years by Earth reckoning. Voyager2, the vehicle constructed by a long extinct race, hurtled without any care into another long, dark and freezing void. Its trajectory and considerably impressive speed meant that it would only be around 900,000 years before it would pass through another solar system, though the vast emptiness in front of the craft remains black and hostile and freezing, completely apathetic to its presence. In the old and dying system Voyager had recently vacated, the planet Viola was now completely silent as it too continues to move through space, orbiting its giant gaseous parent, which in turn orbits a supermassive red giant which illuminated the sad red liquid world. Its waters reflecting a soft purple hue, and so tranquil was its surface, it mirrored the distant stars beautifully, displaying itself as a mesmerizing jewel when the actuality offered nothingness. A world of promise that ultimately failed, like the vast majority of life-bearing planets that had appeared periodically over a vast stretch of time within an infinitely vast stretch of space. Excuse me. There actually were, at that very time, several planets in several distant galaxies that supported life, intelligent and evolved to levels of understanding that were far beyond the creators of Voyager2 in many ways. However, the bewildering and incalculable distance of separation between each civilization ensured that every single one of these mighty beings considers themselves alone and unique, perhaps carefully chosen especially by imagined deities associated with the first moments of creation. Ironically, the one constant that was present in every intelligence, regardless of substantial physical and biological diversity, was that there were absolutely no doubts within each species that they were altogether singular and exceptional. Blue Sea and Red Sea. 142.6 million years plus 100 or so years. The stillness of the waters suggested peace and calmness, comfortable habitat possibilities, with stable and warm light bathing reflectively over the whole surface, offering glimpses of colour patterns that were nothing short of truly beautiful. Another example of universal art. Unfortunately, the waters are putrid and stink of death, with only tiny bacteria living in the deep, a major contributor to the stink surrounding the world. The only thing that can be considered as life. The geological inundation which had caused the caldera to rise some 130 years previously turned out to be an extinction level event. If the star continued to live for long enough, then life would undeniably evolve again. The conditions for it were perfect. High upon the rock face of the inner caldera still stood the Maron of note, like a sentinel keeping watch over the decay and gradual disintegration of his known world. Proud still he looked, rightly so. He was a representation of another vain and ineffective evolutionary event, always doomed by shortness of time left to its parent sun. That didn't prevent him from looking dignified and glad, his head held up high, as though he understood the office he now held. He was the last reminder of a past age, and his stance seemed to suggest he was taking his position seriously, as if he was as close to dignified as was possible for a desiccated body to appear. He was a fine example for the last Maron. Interstellar space. 142.6 million years AD plus 500,000 years by Earth reckoning. The small craft continues to move rapidly through the blackness, as dead and silent as every other small comet or piece of homeless rock. The only dissimilarities would be obvious if there were light shone over them. Voyager 2 would, even after this expanse of time, still reflect much more light than dark lumps of rock or ice. The pitted metal, quite badly damaged in places, perseveres in displaying its difference, as if it somehow perceives how exceptionally extraordinary it is, and just how extraordinary is the cargo within its bosom. As the tiny object proceeds into the darkest black possible, resigned to hundreds of thousands of more years of naught, zero, there was from behind Voyager a sudden deep red flash, followed by a lengthy, low-spectrum violet wash of illuminated space, which had lasted approximately 100,000 years. Viola's supermassive star had gone supernova. The entire system was gone, obliterated in an instant, an irresistible blast of heat that left enormous gaseous nebula. It's possible the nebula may begin coalesce into a stellar nursery in a few million years. Only possible. Just as the giant star had began its exceedingly fast explosion, which envelops everything, planet, moon and asteroid belt, the last Maron still remained recognisable, having petrified slowly and as permanently as the universe allowed. His head held up toward the approaching fire, as if daring it to continue. It did indeed continue, with the last Maron incinerated along with everything else. Interstellar space, 142.6 million AD plus 900,000 years by Earth reckoning. The small and remarkable craft, perfectly engineered for its long ago completed purpose, streaked onwards towards the approaching solar system, one in which intelligent life has evolved. Several of this species' forward satellite probes had already noted Voyager, at this point only because of its speed and highly unusual metal density, one of which was unknown on their own periodic table, the gold. It would be several years yet before they could snare it, or at least scan it and study it. For the moment, the end. Asterisk note, possible series of tails. Asterisk, John, check V1 trajectory. Well, that's that. Well, listen folks, if you've stayed with me for almost another half hour, can't thank you enough. You've no idea. I don't know, as I've said, how to work the analysing sort of thing too well, but from what I can work out, about 18 people or so have read it, but out of that, a dozen or so have listened to the whole story. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I've got another one I'm going to be doing next, horror fiction one, goes between Edinburgh's rave scene in 86 to 1,000 years before the Vatican City was built on the particular area that I'll be talking about, and also in the 13th century with a fight with Van Helsing and Vlad the Impaler, all involved in jumping from one place to another, but a very good story itself. Once more, honestly guys, you've no idea how much it means that people actually watch this, because some people don't get out much, some people haven't got too much contact with the outside world anyway, and when you realise that some people are actually interested in something you're doing, it helps immensely. So let me just say to you all, God bless you folks, God bless you all, and I've said it before, but to be exceptional, you've got to be the exception. So please try and be the exception. Good night everybody. The love goes with you always. Goodbye.